Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to It's Always the Human. This is this episode where and in fact, the whole series, we take, where we can, a step away from the tech and we talk about the humans behind our wonderful ecosystem that is the world of MSP. I'm really excited about this episode because I've got a fantastic guest on with me with loads of experience in the sales realms. We've not really touched on that too heavily at the moment. So we're going to dive into more the human side of sales. This is the podcast that's sponsored by usecure, the security awareness training for MSPs. So let me dive in. Megan, Killion, welcome to the podcast. It is brilliant to have you on finally. We've been talking for ages and we finally made it happen. So welcome along.
Good to be here.
Lovely to have you. And also we're joined by Lorna. Lorna's part of the usecure team and the sort of worldwide representative at all events and all things.
Hi, James. Hi, Megan. It's great to be here again.
Lovely. Right. So let's dive into it. Megan, do you mind giving us a bit of background, if that's okay? So you're a sales and marketing growth expert with loads of experience, but you've got a really interesting backstory as well. So you didn't start in the MSP space. Maybe you could just give us a little bit of there's quite a really interesting personal story.
Yeah, absolutely not. So I'll try going high level. I've got 15 years plus of B2B tech sales and marketing experience, primarily sales. I actually went from like BDR, BD manager, director of BD to VP of sales and marketing. And as soon as I got that title, now all of a sudden, like I'm highly associated with marketing, which is really not my background, but I'll take it. I do know a little bit from being in sales because if you want to sell and you need leads, you have to learn how to market and how to network. I started off in cell phones, which gave me cloud experience. And once I had cloud, I got pulled into the CDN world and sort of big tech and infrastructure, spent a couple of years there. I did work for an MSP as a salesperson for a little while, went back into infrastructure because it's not really a big surprise, but there's a lot more money over there. And then kind of came back. MSPs kept coming to me and finding me, especially once I started consulting. And it just felt like the signs were there all the time that they needed me most, because they were the ones that were literally like basically knocking on my door and begging, like, please.
So this was just a selfless act then that brought you back to the MSP space. It wasn't like a conscious like commercial decision or anything.
No, there are things that I do love about it. Back when we were an agency, I went from consulting to agency work. And back when we were an agency, we sat down and we cross-sectioned our clientele. And we were kind of like, we have a lot of MSPs. Why is that? And I'm going to be honest, it's not because they're the best clients. In fact, they're frequently my most frustrating clients, but they need us. And there are so many people that could help someone who already understands like product marketing, already understands messaging, and they just need someone to do deployment. Managed service providers are like, we do IT. And I'm like, how do you sell we do IT? Oh, we don't actually. Oh, okay. So you need a lot of help. And so, yeah, that's why. And because they are small and in their local communities. And so when I help an MSP double their revenue, I am not helping them buy a yacht or a private plane. I am not helping them contribute to what I consider to be kind of a wealth inequality problem. They are sponsoring their local baseball team. They are putting that money into local communities. They're often hiring people without college degrees. And so that's because like I want to put more money in an ecosystem that I feel is ethical, rather than making rich people richer.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I'll tell you what, you're being really modest because when I was doing the show research, I pulled out a figure, and I think I'd seen this already in your bio stuff, but you generated over like $550 million, is that right, in your time as a BDR? So
I did. To be fair, most of that was in CDN, not managed services.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well,
that's
very honest of you. You didn't need to say that. But actually, the CDN stuff is where I'd like to go back to because this episode really is trying to sort of face the challenge for MSPs, and I hear this all the time, is that, trying to sell the value of MSP is quite tricky. And if you can sell CDN, then there's a big part of that, which is, that there's not much that's visible in the world of CDN, really, unlike the phones you were doing before when you've got a tangible thing with voice quality.
Yeah, hand it to you.
CDN, yeah. So like, how did you cope with that then? What was your approach to selling CDN? What made you successful there?
So in the time that I was in CDN, the industry changed tremendously. When I first started, the difference between premium CDN being on a good network and public internet or a lesser, tier 3 network, was the difference between like minutes of buffering on a video and seconds of buffering on a video. So that.
Okay, so there's frustration and pain there you have to tap into.
And then monetization grew and grew and grew and grew, right? So in the early days, I think the internet didn't even really know how to monetize itself. And then ad networks became a thing, and then ad insertion became a thing, and latency became so hyper painful when it relates to those things. And so selling was all about reverse engineering to pain, and that pain was really the consumer and whether the consumer is going to sit there and continue to engage with your content wherever that may be. And then there's other things. That's like the media and gaming side of CDN, which is arguably where some of the biggest money is and where some of the biggest contracts I've done have been. That's the world I played in. But there's also medical implications, educational implications, the consistency of having uptime. And there were things we could show. For large enterprise clients, we were literally taking them into the data centers and giving them tours and showing them the knock. But in, your average mid-sized deal, we were more showing dashboards, right? Like, here's what, and there were things that came out during that time. Sodexis is one of the more common ones where you could compare. So you could look at like Akamai versus Cashfly versus Highwinds versus Limelight. And all of those could be seen in one place. And you could see like, hey, if we put this size chunk through, it's this type of data. This is what you're going to see for ping. This is what you're going to see for latency in all these different networks. And then we could look at that geographically and regionally. And so it was all about pulling out of people what they cared about. And that changed a lot over time. In the beginning, it was, I need something people will stay for. In the mid market, like in the middle of that kind of time that I was in it, it was all about monetization and how you monetize and whether your ads can insert fast enough and all of those things and clicks.
Oh, right. So there's a real monetary value you can place on it then once you get to that stuff.
Yes. And then data became huge, like data analysis and knowing, like, we have exact numbers for how patient people are now, how long they'll stay. Like, if it lags at all, we're so spoiled now. If it lags at all, we're all abandoning. And so that all, and then in the end, where we really ended up right before I left the industry, it very much became a financial conversation because there was sort of a race to the bottom where now the average performance is good enough across the board. Like, we have kind of mastered infrastructure enough that all of these networks are probably good enough for what you need, unless you have the one exception kind of being live streaming at scale.
Yeah, you feel the pain of that, don't you? I'm just thinking, Megan, as you're talking, I'm just thinking this feels like there's some pretty big parallels there with the MSP world in terms of, like, the sort of the data driven approach. So maybe trying to understand the pains there through visualization and find ways to show it, but then also that sort of the levels at which you have to communicate value. So there's like good enough, and then you've got the what potentially what would be the showing the actual value, the return on investment. So there's some real parallels there, isn't there?
So both of them are very, very similar in that discovery is the magic. It doesn't matter what you sell, you have to do discovery well. You have to know why someone is motivated to make a change in their life, in their business. And so, like, for CDN, maybe there's a problem with the current provider. Maybe they want to add a second provider. That same thing is true with MSPs, right? Like, maybe they've had a problem with who they're using today. Or maybe they just want to be able to fail over to someone else just in case, or there's one thing that their current provider isn't doing for them, and that's how you get your way in, whatever. And you can grab more by performing. And the truth is that almost no one, there are people who are so much emoting decision makers that they will buy just because they like you. But most people are not going to make a bad business decision because they like you. However, people do not buy from people they don't like. They don't. They will literally go find another way to buy what you sell because they don't like you. I've done it. Like, you go to the car dealership and the car dealer's super, super rude. And I'm like, screw this. I'm going to Carvana and I'll go buy that same thing without you, dude, that I don't like. Now, just because I like you and I talk to you and I'm like, hey, we vibe, that doesn't mean I'm going to buy the product or service that you sell. But if you can be likable and also understand me, there are people who are making their decision on price. That's happening a lot in the MSP world right now, especially with MSPs that are not differentiating themselves in any other way. So if you present it like,
It's that race to the bottom you talked about, isn't it? There's another similarity there. That's happening, isn't it now?
oh, 100%, it's a race to the bottom, because if what you say is, we just do outsourced IT, we're a help desk, if that's how you describe yourself, okay, there are 80,000 of those in the United States. The only reason you're going to give me to buy from you, two things: I trust you more and you're cheaper. And given the choice between those two things, if I'm choosing between like someone I trust a little bit more or someone who's a lot cheaper, I'm going to choose the way less cheaper option.
Yeah, that's way more tangible.
Maybe I'll be back next year if they suck, but you lost me by being more expensive if that's how you sell.
What do you think in terms of like the sort of the human element, in terms of the like what you saw? Because you obviously got a bit of a gift for this stuff, and so people listening might be thinking, "Oh, great! Well, Megan's just great at sales. That's how it is." But did you see, especially within your sort of CDN days, people that were either good like you at this, or those that failed that weren't very good, and why? Because it does sound like that human part is important.
I think there's more than one way to be good at sales. And so what I would say is that I've seen people succeed in sales that you would not expect to. I would say that the biggest like failure I see is people who just don't care very much or have really big egos. Where maybe potentially they sold something that was easy in the past, and then they get into an industry or a company, like, for example, right? In CDN, Akamai is sort of the 500-pound gorilla in the room. And so I saw a lot of guys come out of Akamai and go into a smaller CDN. Like, I worked at Highlands, I worked at Cashfly, and fail because they were used to having brand recognition and being the easy choice. And so they didn't actually have sales acumen. And then when confronted with that, they didn't want to build it, because why would I do something that's hard when I could go do something that's easy? Like, it's the difference between, selling like Disney versus selling some tiny little startup media company that no one has ever heard of.
Which is always the case in the world of MSP, isn't it? That's the thing. It's always the case. There is no brand recognition, really. You are doing it from scratch.
There are only a handful of companies in our space, like the Arctic Wolf types, that are big enough that they have any type of recognition. And it's not household brand recognition, but like, we have a couple of those, like, Team Logic or whatever, that are coast to coast recognized enough that you might be the easy, reliable choice.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking, Lorna, this ties into sort of your area as well, because I think I can call you out on this, really. Like, one of the things you do exceptionally well at usecure is you just yourself, and you connect and you build that trust very fast with what you're doing. So you probably have, a good steer on this as well, on the importance of that building that relationship is.
Yeah, I think relationships are really key. I think where MSPs struggle, which I think you alluded to, Megan, is, most of them come from a techie background, and they're not salespeople and they're not marketers. So I think that's a real struggle for them, because, I've always said people buy off people. I used to be a reseller back in the day. I wasn't one of these, hunt down the deal type people. I was just like, I was a consultant, and I wanted people to trust that what I was suggesting that they bought technology wise was because I thought it was their best option. And I'd always go for, like, the Rolls Royce and then the like Ford Fiesta. I'd say, well, if you can't afford the bells and whistles, then, you know, this is more in your ballpark. And over the years, it built up so much trust. And with the team at usecure, we're all a little bit different. And we all have very different approaches, but, you know, we try and build that relationship with the MSPs. So if there is a problem, they can come to us and go, hey, we're not really happy with this, you know, can you do something about it? And then we go, oh God, yeah, because we'd rather be seen as being open, to be able to approachable and communicate and dynamic. And we win quite a bit of business because of that, because our teams are so one-to-one with the clients, and we help the MSPs because we know they're not marketers, and we know they're not you know, these amazing salespeople. That, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some that are absolutely awesome for you out there. Thank you very much. But you know, you have to wear a lot of hats when you're a smaller business compared to a big company.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think that's where they struggle.
I think that one of the things I'm sort of notorious for saying when I'm coaching BDRs specifically, so like outbound salespeople, is your job is not to book the meeting. Your job is not to sell anything. Your job is to find out if there is a problem that you can solve and connect them with the solution. And that like consultative mindset is what made me successful in my sales career. And I will say there's a huge difference between, so when I sold CDN, I was selling a highly technical product to highly technical people. I was dealing with CTOs, VPs of infrastructure. I literally did deals with people whose job description was director of CDN. Like literally your whole job is just to manage the cool.
Gives us a bit of a feel for the level you're at. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, those are huge enterprise organizations that have that level of specificity, but that's how important it is to their business. Think how easy it would be to sell managed services if you got to sell to someone whose whole job was just to decide who was going to be your MSP. But that is not how it works. Even if you're on the enterprise level of selling managed services, at best, you're dealing with like a director of IT or someone who does vendor management, not someone whose whole job is you. And so most of the time you are selling a somewhat technical, it's not as highly technical, but a technical product to a non-technical person. They do not inherently understand what you do. They speak in value, they speak in business terms, they speak in productivity, in their ease of life, in work-life balance. Those are things that matter to them. Budget, ROI. They don't care what your stack is. They don't care about, and none of the like, a lot of times in sales, I think we get caught up in this concept of metrics. Very few of the metrics you can show as an MSP are going to matter to a buyer. Like maybe
Are there any? What would you lead it? Can you think of any that would be useful?
Response time is probably the only one, and like time to resolution.
Yeah.
But it's still, you're still probably going to have to explain it a little bit. But they definitely don't care how many tickets you're doing a day, or like how many devices are up at any given time, or like when the last time you ran a security check was, and how clean the hard drive is. Like they don't care. They don't know what that means. So, and I think as we're coming into this sort of like more modern digital age of being an MSP, also the things we historically did that were very visible, like coming in and fixing a router or a printer, are less likely to be the problem. And you're more likely to have like SaaS problems and connectivity issues maybe, and more of what you're doing is invisible. So translating that value becomes super, super important, and also being trusted, because a lot of what you're going to say is not something they're ever really going to see, right? Like you're saying they're secure, but they don't know how to check if they are. So they need to trust that you are telling them the truth, and you build that through micro honesty throughout the whole process, where every single time you are doing what you say you will do, and you are being transparent and authentic, and you are building rapport.
Is this even in the, sorry to interrupt you there, but is this in the sort of even in the opening stages before you've even secured the deal? Do you place a lot of importance on that sort of, like getting back to people when you say you will via email or whatever it might be, just building 100%. It up from the get-go?
Actually, potentially more important because, well, more important for revenue acquisition, which is what I do. You want to keep the client, you got to keep doing what you said you would. But in terms of acquiring them, there is it's a fallacy, right? That the way I'm treated in the sales process is how I would be treated as a customer. Almost always completely different teams. However, I'm going to assume that the response time when I email the salesperson is the same as the response time when I email a tech. I'm going to assume that if the salesperson lies to me, my techs are going to lie to me. I'm going to assume that if there's a delay in you getting back to me, that's the way the business is run. So even though it's a fallacy and it's not true, those things do it, like sending the email when you say you will send the email, even stupid little stuff. Like if I cold call you and you're like, I'm super busy, can you call me back next month? That doesn't mean call you tomorrow. That doesn't mean call you next week. It means call you next month. Next month, when you asked, as you asked. If I want to call you earlier, then I should push back when you say it, not just do it.
That's basically like boundaries and respect, isn't there? So you deal with this a lot. Obviously, you've dealt with so many MSPs and you've helped them sort of improve their sales approach and stuff. Can you tell me about some that tell me first of all one that's just not worked? When you've gone in, you've gone, right, okay, I know how important it is that the humans here need to build good rapport and do these things right. Has it ever not worked out?
Oh yeah, lots of times. I mean, there's such a big gap between wanting something and being willing to do the things it takes to get there. And for most MSPs, let's be honest, the majority of our community is lifestyle businesses. There's nothing wrong with that. I run a lifestyle business. Props to you. I too want to work less. That's fine. Great. But you have to be honest with yourself earlier on, preferably before you spend a bunch of money with a consultant or an agency, about how willing you are to work to get there, right? So most, not all, I have so many amazing clients that do what they say they're going to do, that put in the work, that get there. But a lot of them are looking for a magic bullet. And there's a lot of what I consider to be unethical marketing in our space from marketing agencies, lead gen agencies, and consultants, where they position themselves as a magic bullet, which isn't a real thing. You are going to have to help me help you. And that's true everywhere. I talked to a prospect just the other day who I had spoken to 2 years ago, and he'd gone another direction because I had told him very openly and honestly that unless you are willing to do XYZ, which was targeting, messaging, and firing a couple of clients, I can't help you. And so he went and he spent $120,000 with what you would consider to be a standard full stack agency in our space, where they just do it for you. Fell on his face. There's nothing. Not only did he not get any revenue out of it, there wasn't even a single new deal. He also does not have any of the data, because most of these companies, once you leave them, you're not a client, so you don't get any of the information. So with us, we typically run 3-month pilots on our programs, and I'm the biggest thing is the data. Actually, you may fail. I'm not telling you you're going to be successful. This may suck because we're going to try something and see if it works. But then you get to come out of that and re-strategize. And so everything that we do runs in 3-month sprints and that. And I don't even do the deployment anymore. But that piece of not wanting to actually do it. And when I dug into it with him, we just had a call last week where I was well, what did you do? What didn't you do? He was yeah, I missed a lot of the meetings.
And that's fatal. That's absolutely fatal, isn't it? It's it's like inviting somebody for dinner and not turning up. It's
yeah, exactly.
That's the biggest thing. There's nothing more annoying, apart from a dog at the moment, than arranging a meeting and rocking up, and the person that's meant to be on the other end of the call is not there. That's happened to me so many times, and it's
I think it's especially when it's your company. And like, if I'm the agency, if I'm the consultant, whatever it is, I need to get that from you. And like, I hear all the time from MSPs where they're like, well, we're an MSP and you've worked with MSPs. And I'm immediately like, we can't work together. I'm not your consultant. This is not going to work. Because yes, I have worked for MSPs, and yes, you are an MSP, and you are telling me point blank that you don't want to differentiate yourself. So continue to race towards the bottom. Let me know how that goes for you. Your margins are going to be because the cost of living is going up, the cost of employees is going up, and businesses want to pay you less, and you're getting crushed. So until you're ready to say, here's how we do things differently, this is the value that we provide, and actually go in and say, like, look in the back end and look at what kind of tickets do you do regularly? What type of value does that have? Are you actually having those QBRs and going deep in them beyond just, we closed your ticket, but how is this impacting your business? What's coming for the future of your business? How are things changing in your industry? How can we partner with you and help you implement the technology you need to get there? If you're not willing to do that, I'm not going to say any bad names about the people I think you should go talk to, but go pick one of the people who do, like, here's your MSP 101 roadmap, follow my 7-step process and win. Let me know if that actually impacts your bottom line.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree. And I think they've also got to be able to think out the box a little bit as well and not just go down that same route, because how many times have we all gone, well, it didn't work this time, but let's try it again and we may have more luck.
The definition of
it's like,
insanity.
yeah, and it's you know, so now I very much steer on the opinion, let's try this, and if it doesn't work, we'll go a different direction. But as well, it also depends where you are in the world, because what works in one region won't necessarily work in another region, because, the British certainly operate differently to the Australian, the Australian regions and MSPs out there. And again, the Americans and Canadians,
and
Europeans.
America has subcultures. So
yes.
We talk about this a lot when I'm talking to BDRs, because we're talking about literally calling someone cold out of the blue. And I'm like, you have to understand, in the South, in the Midwest, people will say yes to be polite, to be kind, and then not show up to the meeting. So cold calling can feel better in those regions, but it's not actually a better result. Your big cities, your New Englands, your West Coast, they're a little bit meaner. Like, you'll get a lot more yous and like dies on the phone. But if they book the meeting, they're probably going to show up because they're not interested in wasting their time just to be nice to you. And so, like, that's just one tiny little example of how it's so different rural versus city. Like, urban is super fast paced. There's also, in the US, there's like a very, very, especially post-COVID, there is huge difference in opinion about in-person, right? So like, there are definitely still ages and regions where in-person, having a tech come into the business has tremendous value. But there are also regions and generations and ages and industries where, like, I would actually prefer to never see your face. Just make sure everything works.
That's amazing. How such difference, isn't it? That's crazy. What about the? I know you've talked a lot about the phone side of things. Should we be on the phones or not? And so, what's your position on that? And there's two things there. What's your position on the sort of is the phone approach dead? And then what makes that human side work when you're doing those calls? Like, who's good at this? Because obviously, everyone, like most MSPs you speak to, aren't really that up for it. But what do you need to make that work if it can work still?
There's a couple things. One, understand your buyer. So if you are kind of a traditional MSP where your value is person to person, we have great techs, they're super personable, we're very hands-on, relational selling, and you sell to more of that like boomer and elder millennial audience, boy, you better be going in person. You better be picking up the phone, because like we said, right, the fallacy of how I'm treated in sales and how I'm treated when I'm a client exists. So you should be communicating with them the same way that you would when they're a client, right? Like,
So you don't subscribe to this sort of blanket like, oh, we should cold call everyone. That's fine. You think there's certain areas where it works much better and others where they wouldn't want that.
be strategic based on your prospects and your clients. And the best way to get that data, super big secret, guys. Did you know you can just go talk to your clients and ask them things? Hey, would this work on you? Why did you buy from us? Would you have bought from us if I'd cold called you, or was it specifically because we met at that event?
Is that something you build? Do you build that as part of your process? Is that like part of your process? Do you make sure that people you work with actually do go back and speak to the people?
Yeah, we have a
their clients?
questionnaire. We're like, take this questionnaire and go interview your 5 best or your 10 best clients and find out like why they bought from you. And also like understanding that things change with time, but like your younger generation, right? A lot of like younger millennials, Gen Z, I'd honestly kind of rather just buy online. Like, I want to find you, read all about you, and then make the purchase without talking to a person if possible.
That's tricky though, isn't it, to get the sale done if you're an MSP trying to deal with a sort of a younger business owner and got a creative space or whatever, something like that.
Well, especially because most of them are very resistant to publishing pricing, are very resistant to even like going and asking for case studies. It's so different than other industries I've worked in where like there's marketing departments, and that marketing department, part of their job is going and getting case studies from clients. Like I'll talk to an MSP and I'll be like, well, why don't you have any social proof? And they're like, well, I don't want to make my clients feel uncomfortable. I'm like,
you don't subscribe to that idea, I'm guessing.
What kind of relationship do you have from your clients that you can't ask them for a quote about you? Like, am I doing a good job? Are you happy? Is the start, right? Like, are you happy with us? Which most MSPs are pushing CSAT anyways. Take your positive CSATs, call them up on a Tuesday when you know that they're not busy because you have back-end analysis access to the busyness of their employees, and just be like, hey, Margaret, it's been a while since we talked. What is it? Like, why do you love us? And then if you want to take it a step further and really be great at what you do you know anyone else who could benefit from the things we do for you? Would you facilitate an introduction? Like, it's not rocket science if you just get out of your own way.
Does that fuel quite a lot of the success you see, Megan? Like, so is it where you've seen sort of success in the MSPs you've worked with, that kind of like stimulating referral side of things? Does that work pretty well?
If you're doing a good job. So if you are,
yes, that's a minor detail in the process.
You're good. I think a lot of MSPs think they're good and they don't pressure test it. They think they're good because nothing's broken, but that doesn't mean your clients are happy. It means they're not upset, and there's a difference. So actually like going above and beyond and making your clients happy, and then yes, reach out, ask for referrals, build and keep relationship. Like, don't run your QBR like a checklist. Actually show up and care about people. And so yes, that works incredibly well. Also, remembering to actually publish those things. So I can't tell you how many MSPs I've talked to where like they do actually have the material somewhere, but it's like buried in SharePoint. It's not on the website. They've never made a LinkedIn post about it. They don't do blogs, or if they do blogs, they're like paying some third party to just generate AI slop, and they're not doing the actual work of finishing the case study, publishing it, turning it into a story, speaking about it where people can see. That's the like kind of magic sauce. And also like just iterating and improving and looking back at what you've done and what's worked and doing more of what works. And then I always tell people like, hey, what if once a quarter you just tried one new thing? And if it doesn't work, you stop doing it. And if it does work, you do more of it. And like make small bets, double down on what works, do that quarterly, and it doesn't have to be this big, heavy thing that you're investing all your time and money into. Like if you want to be a lifestyle...
Give me an example, Megan. Give me an example, because I know you've tried loads of things and you've had some pretty innovative ideas in your time, obviously, at other companies and stuff. But anything you can think off the top of your head that you tried that was like a bit off the wall that yielded results?
The Crumpled Letter campaign.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which is instead of sending like a mailer, you send whatever you would send, like your white paper or whatever.
I've seen these. Yeah.
Crumpled up like with a coffee stain on it, and you put like a sticky note on it that says, you weren't going to read this anyways. It's going to end up in the trash.
Oh, God, that's...
You
That's
can
clever.
call behind it, whatever. That one worked super, super well. What has also worked, this is for enterprise deals, by the way. I wouldn't do this for your average like small business deal, but I've mailed people burner cell phones. Works like a charm with my phone number already in it. So I mail the burner, I put a sticky note on it, and it says, I assume your phone's broken because you're not answering any of my calls. You can call me. And my
That's
number's in
great.
it, and they call me, and it works so well. And like, I mean, even for small business, it could work because like burner phones are only like $20. It's not that big of a cost.
It's really the idea though. Isn't it? It's like the sort of, this is like it doesn't have to actually make a call. Like you could even, I can imagine a whole bunch of 3D printed ones or something, or like, like it just has to be a phone, doesn't it? That's the joke,
We've done like Monopoly, where we have mailed, like we've 3D printed and mailed people Monopoly pieces. And then we've hosted a live event where you bring the pieces and we host a Monopoly game and there's prizes, and that has worked super well.
Oh wow!
The biggest thing
How did
is
that
just
work? How do you mean? How did?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
So we print the Monopoly pieces, and each piece is unique, and so they get them in advance with an invite to the event, and then they show up to the live event. And we play Monopoly, and they have the piece, like they're holding it, but we're doing it all digitally. And when they land on certain things, they get prizes. Those prizes are always related to what we do. So like for an MSP, we ran them where like they were getting free security assessments. They were getting free subscriptions to software for a certain period of time, like giving away even like iPads, that type of thing. But the biggest piece is just don't do what everyone else is doing. Like if you can find 3 competitors and define a competitor as someone who's in your market that does something that you do, don't do that.
Yeah, so clearly from the beginning when we've been talking, your differentiation has come up numerous times now, and that's absolutely key, isn't it? So we talked a little bit about the phone side of things. I know from speaking to you a while back that you were pretty big on the old automation side of things. So how does that play a factor? Is automation still a positive in this equation, or is it causing more damage than good when it comes to the whole human connection thing?
This is not an either or argument, right? Human work for human people. There's so many things in my day as a consultant, as a salesperson, I don't want to do, okay? Like, I don't want to do it. It's not high value for me. It's not what I'm great at. Automate it, tap AI into it, whatever. Not like it would be garbage if you booked a consult with me and instead of me showing up, there was like some chat GPT version of me.
That's possibly a step too far. Yeah, I sort of meant like the outreach side of things rather than totally replacing yourself and going on holiday.
So I think AI cold callers are garbage. I'm very anti that. Automation is great for reminders. We're huge internally about this concept of tiering. We have 3 tiers. Tier 1 prospects are prospects that are 100%, like they are our ICP. I would jump up and down if I got them. And the important part, I have a hypothesis. I have done enough research. They have shown up somewhere based on filters or triggers or whatever that I have a hypothesis for why you specifically should want to work with me specifically. That's tier 1. Tier 1 prospects get 100% manual outreach. I call them. I may have like a format or a formula for the email, but I'm going to write that email. I'm going to edit it up before it gets sent to you.
Right. Okay.
I might do the drop by. I might mail you a cell phone, whatever. That's tier 1 prospects.
Do you mean visit in person? The drop by, is that the sort of the visit in person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in person. So that's tier 1.
Sorry, I was so taken aback. Like, something's in person still these days? Like, okay.
Sometimes, especially if you're an MSP.
All right. I can handle that.
If you're an MSP where one of your differentiators is we send a tech out once a quarter, once a month, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Send a salesperson out. Why would you not do that? Send a salesperson out with the tech with them. Be like, hey, this is Joe. We stopped by at one of these other nearby businesses, like down the corner is one of our clients, and we're right here. We drive by all the time, and I thought I'd come in and say hello. Like,
Oh, I'm following. I don't know if you know. So Mike over at Iceberg Cyber is doing this donuts run thing, which he's like on a road to 100 events. He's out there with MSPs giving donuts to just making fresh intros to people that are targeted, and it seems
It's
to be
so
working great. And yeah,
it's
clearly
so
that's
much easier than
an
like
approach
we've
to look at.
overcomplicated it to be, right? Like show up and be nice is not that hard. But anyways, tier 2 are prospects that like fit the filters. Like on the surface, they look like they're your ideal client, but you do not yet have a hypothesis.
So
There's
just like
nothing on your
sector, size, location sort of thing.
Yeah, so let's say like I specialize in medical and legal and health, like that's my as an MSP. Then my tier 2 would probably be mostly medical and legal that are the right size, right location, but there's nothing on their website that says that they need us. They're not like hiring or firing IT super rapidly. I don't have a trigger. And then so that tier 2 is going to be a combination. There will be some manual stuff in there. I'm probably still going to call them. If I have say like a 21 step sequence, maybe I call them 4 times instead of calling them 10 times, right? And the emails are going to be specialized to the industry. I'm still going to segment. I'm still going to take the time to figure out what buyer persona I'm talking to. But all my personalization is going to be at the persona level and industry level instead of the personal level. And then tier 3 that's where you can be a little obnoxious, because these are the people who you have 1 or 2 clients that look like them. You know, you could service them. If they called you up, you'd take them as a client. But they're not anything to write home about. That's where we can test things. We think, this might be too noisy. I'm not sure this messaging is going to connect. I'm not going to take the time to individualize every email. That's where I use like AI and automation in the outreach. Tier 3 is like, it's not complete garbage, but they probably weren't going to buy from us anyways. So we might as well send them this email I let ChatGPT write for me and see if it works.
Yeah, it's like an efficiency thing there, isn't it? And so what about the people that are doing this is an interesting one. So I know I've heard you talk about before sort of just the hiring from different backgrounds, not worrying too much about necessarily being like massively experienced already. So what are your thoughts there? What have you got any stories around people that you've sort of worked with that you would have thought, like whatever, it may have come from like bartending or what some sort of, I don't want to pull out bartending necessarily, but single mums retail, anything that's like sort of not MSP focused. Any stories around what makes someone great in those terms?
I love me an underdog. Love me an underdog.
All right.
Here are the things you can look for in salespeople, in BDRs. 1, are they hungry? Do they want it? If you've ever done EOS, there's this concept of gets it, wants it, has the capacity to do it, right? Do they get it? So are they catching on when I'm talking to them? When I'm like, and can they relate it to something they've already done? So yeah, we're talking about cold calling or we're talking about upselling or whatever, but the bartender I'm talking to is like relating that to how they get an angry drunk person out of the bar, or how they get somebody to buy top shelf instead of low shelf because they know that's going to improve their tip at the end of the night. Like, can they relate it? So that's the gets it, wants it. Are they hungry? Do they want to get out of where they are at? Are they willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to get there? Capacity to do it, I will teach them. I will teach you that how if you have the get it, want it, right? And so that's sort of for me what I look for. I've had tremendous success with bartenders, with retail, with single. I was a single mom. I was a homeless single mother. I had nothing. And if not for the people who put their hand out and said, I'm going to pull you up this next step, I would probably still be there. Like, I needed the opportunity to work hard. And I love to give people opportunities to work hard. That said, there are also failure stories. But some of the best times that it has worked out, I've had people go on to be directors of marketing. I've had people go on.
From what kind of backgrounds? What have you got any examples of like what those journeys look like?
So I had a retail associate that came to me having sold cell phones, but in the consumer side. And she'd been doing that for like a year and a half. And it's sort of relevant to the story that she is trans, and that had been preventative for a lot of in-person opportunity because there was a tremendous amount of stigma. And she spent a year and a half with me. We started with like cold calling, outbounding. She was good, but she wasn't my absolute best cold caller. But what she was is someone who didn't just work her shift and then clock out. She was someone who worked her shift and then was on Slack like, Megan, give me more resources. Megan, I want to be better. Megan, teach me this.
Yeah, so it's the grit that's there.
The grit. And I pivoted that and I was like, hey, look, I think you're doing fine on the phones, but I don't think you love it. And I don't think it's the best fit for you. Do you want to help out on the social media side? And she was like, hell yeah, I want to learn how to do social media. That sounds amazing. And not only did she want it, but she was like, I'm not going to ask you to double pay me. I want to learn this. I will do it for free. I will, like, for your expertise, for you to teach me how to do it. She did. She learned Canva. She learned Photoshop. We were using like Hootsuite and then a weird Creative Cloud type thing for scheduling out that no one has ever heard of because it's an agency thing. And she learned all of the skills, all of the stack. And then about 6 months in, she started bringing me ideas. And the minute she started bringing me ideas, I was like, now I'm going to pay you. Because now you're doing it like you're a professional. And she actually got a job with one of my former clients, is still there to this day. And they didn't snipe her or anything. We have kind of like an agreement. Like, if you like one of my people, let's talk about it because you can probably make them a better offer than I can. Because like agency margins are
Yeah, it can be pretty rough in agency life, can't it? But so does that work? Is that something you'd recommend then? Because that's an amazing story, and is this really viable for MSPs that are thinking, okay, where would my next sales hire be potentially? Is this a route?
It is viable if you are willing to do the pre-work. What you cannot do as an MSP owner who maybe isn't super sales experienced, like, it has worked for me because I have the knowledge to give them. So when they come to me and they're like, this isn't working, I can sit and workshop that with them. What you cannot do is be like a technical founder and go hire somebody who works at Domino's and be like, this is going to be great.
Somehow it'll be fine. How did your journey go, Megan? What was the first step that changed where your trajectory was then?
So there were a couple like really big key moments. The first one, I was like I said, homeless single mom. I went to a career fair in Barnstable County where I grew up. And I walked in with my resume and I was like, I was getting my arse handed to me because I dropped out of college. And my experience was like, I'd been a Special Olympics riding coach and worked at a movie theater.
Special Olympics writing coach, do you say?
Riding, like
riding. Oh, right. Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd had experience, but like it didn't look great on paper. I literally looked like what I was, which was a burnt out gifted kid, like tons of teenage high school stuff and then nothing. And I had a baby to boot. And then I got this job at Bayside. They were there. And the hiring manager, her name's Corby, she talked to me. Like, she just gave me the time of day to talk to me. And she was like, you're really bright. And I was like, yeah, I know. But I also have all these things and like limitations on my schedule and when I can work and when I can't work. And she was like, well, technically we have 3 different shifts. And like, normally we sort of enforce that you have to work the specific shifts. But I don't mind making something for you as a single mom where you can have a mid shift instead of one of these other ones. Because they had like overnights, morning, evening, overnight. And she was like, I can give you mom hours. Like, I work mom hours because she was the manager of the front desk. And at that time, I had gone and gotten my bartending certification. So I'd learned to be a bartender, but I hadn't bartended yet. And she was like, and if you show up on time and you're good at the front desk, you're good with people, I'll give you a shot at bartending. And so that was my first big break. I worked there for a year. I became a bartender in like 3 months. And then I had something happen in my personal life where I had to leave that job. and it was terrible to have to leave, but they gave me a great recommendation. And it was a golf resort. And so my next job was like just bartending at a golf resort. And that I made good money bartending.
That's where it's at, is it?
Yeah, it was just a
So
very
if MSP doesn't work out, any listeners, you know.
I would go back. I joke with my husband all the time. We've got a golf course at the end of our road, basically. I joke with him all the time. I'm like, I'm just gonna go start picking up shifts at the golf course. Like, I would totally be a bottle babe again if the opportunity arose. Like, I love bartending. And then after that, like I'd done the whole bartending thing, and I actually met my next boss while bartending. I got a lot of job offers while bartending, by the way, but this one, Chris James, Amcrom Wireless, that's how I got into cell phones. And I had said no to sales jobs previously, even though I knew I was good at sales and I'd done it independently. I've got a whole long story about how I made my first like 6 figures buying and selling books on Amazon, but that's a whole nother story. I've always been entrepreneurial. And that second job, like, he had approached me, and then I'd said no the first time. And the second time, like, I was in between jobs, and he was like, just come work for me. And I was like, if you put me on the business side, because at that point I'd gotten savvy enough and done a little bit of research and been like, consumer sales it's got like a ceiling. I don't want a ceiling. And so that was how I got the cloud, because I worked business to business. Amcom Wireless was a Verizon reseller. And, he was really the first person I had truly invest in me. Like,
In what sense? Like training and support, or?
yeah, he sent me to sales trainings. He promoted me. I became like the regional director of training super quickly. So he was sending me to the Verizon trainings, and I was bringing that all back to our individual employees. So I was working on the business side, but training both consumer and business. And that was my first, like, here is someone who will invest in me if I give it back. And that was that first real experience there. And then the second one was another Chris who did a very similar thing in CDN. So I have been tremendously lucky to be seen by people. I don't think I've ever gotten a job that on paper made sense for me. It's always been a huge jump. Like, if you look at my LinkedIn or my resume, you're like, how did she go from here to here? And it's because I walked in the door and was like, I want it. And if you take a chance on me, like, I will figure it out if you just give me the opportunity. And then the people along the way who actually invested will be like, these are people I send Christmas gifts every single year and will until I die, because I wouldn't be where I am if not for the people who took a chance on me.
Yeah, there's a really important message there, isn't there? To always do that.
And I think never give up and never underestimate your capabilities, because I think people can quite easily get a knockback and then go. But I think if you believe in yourself and you don't listen to anybody else but yourself, as in like what you think you can do, then there's always somebody out there that will give you the opportunity.
When I had my oldest son, I was 17 when I got pregnant, 18 when I had him. And I had an older cousin that had a baby young as well. She was also a teen mom. And my grandmother said to my face, and keep in mind, like, I was a national merit scholar. I was top of my class. I was this close to valedictorian, pregnant. And my grandmother sat at my kitchen table and told me I was throwing my life away and that I should just go get an abortion because this was the end of my life and I was never going to amount to anything, and I was going to be just like this other cousin who I did not and do not have a lot of respect for. She's had all her kids taken by CPS. And at first it was like a punch in the face, and then
yeah, you could have let that floor you and then, well, God forbid, go down that route, but yeah.
Every other since then, still to this day, there are moments I let that motivate me. And she is dead and buried, and I love her. My grandmother was amazing, by the way. It was just one of those moments. Like, she
generational difference there.
Generational opinion, wasn't it then?
Now, like, there are still days I look back and I'm like, yeah, you, because I'm doing it and I am on paper, like I have plenty of successful cousins and family members. Like on paper, I'm the most successful person in my family without a college degree. And like I did it, and I did it as a single mom for many years. And now I'm happily married and have 4 kids. And like, so I think there is huge value. Like, don't listen to anybody but you. If you look at like some of the most successful people out there, like I think of Taylor Swift all the time as someone who has been talked against pretty much since the beginning. And she is inarguably the GOAT. So we like, that's true of almost anybody.
I'm nodding like yeah, like yeah. Well, that's what I think too. But no, but I'll go with the story.
Yeah, it's not like, I mean, there are lots of people who don't like her, and I think that's another thing is like you don't have to be likable, babe. Be
Madonna was the same though.
Yeah,
Madonna. Most people, a lot of people hated her. They thought she was a slut. But but I'm like, yeah, but
do what you love. Do it passionately. Do it unapologetically. Do it while you cry. Like that's my like. Do it crying, babe. Like keep pushing that boundary. There are so many times in my life when there was one time I was literally nursing twins during a sales call, like crying, like video off, and I closed that deal. Might I add? So like. You gotta just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and it's gonna hurt. And I think for me, it's like the life that I have now, and I work 3 days a week. I am an international bestseller. I have won awards for public speaking. I've won awards as being one of the top agencies in the world back when I was an agency owner. I'm an award-winning consultant. Now life is a lot easier, and like I get to be present with my kids and go to their stuff, and like life is pretty amazing. Like I live right by Disney. I have an incredible husband who's so supportive. All of those things cost blood, sweat, and tears. It all was hard. Pick your hard, man. Like you can sit in your and be miserable like that, or you can be miserable working your ass off. The payout is way better for being miserable working your ass off than being miserable with your lack of accomplishments.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, listen, you've obviously you're an amazing example of that, really, and hopefully that's a bit of a wake up call for anyone who's having a bad day listening to this and thinking that maybe things are just not going to work out, and it's just for a tiny little speed bump, nothing too major. But hey, listen, it hasn't always been plain sailing. So, Megan, we've got a couple of segments to round out our conversation. The first one is a confession. So this is the biggest professional mistake you've made. If you want to take a second to have a little think about what that might be.
There have been a couple mistakes. There are 2 that really stand out. One of them was small but felt big at the time, and one of them felt small at the time but ended up being pretty big. So I'll go with the second one. I was working at Cashfly as the VP of Sales and Marketing. I had 4x their revenue in 18 months, taken them from like 2.5 mil to 10 mil. Tremendously successful. I'd hired they didn't have a sales team before me. I completely hired and built their sales team, their sales processes, their CRMs, everything. And I loved that job. We had unlimited PTO. We had Fridays off all summer. It was 100% remote. And I mostly loved my colleagues 99% of the time. It was sort of like the end of COVID, right? So, COVID had, like, we had just been, like, the shots had just come out, and we'd just been allowed back out into the world. And, I was overdue for vacation. It was my vacation. It was a Thursday, and I'd clocked out. It was like 6 p.m. my time. My vacation started the next day. I was done. And my COO at the time pinged me on Slack and was like, hey, the website traffic is down. What's going on? And I was like, go check. Roblox was our biggest client. And so I was like, go check Roblox's traffic. I bet it's down too. It was, but he kept going. He was like, something has to be wrong. What have you changed? You can't leave for vacation with it like this. And I said, I quit.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, that does sound pretty unreasonable, but yeah, that's quite a knee jerk.
But then, and I'd already So I had already switched. Like, I was going to be just the VP of marketing, which is weird. I should have said, I want to be VP of sales. Let's hire a VP of marketing. So I'd already like introduced them to and helped them hire who was going to be the VP of sales. So it wasn't like hugely disruptive for them that I was leaving right away. It became disruptive later, but they are now so big. And I was so close to being vested. I was so close. Like, if I had stayed, I would be so much more wealthy than I am right now. And it was the middle pain. Like, anybody who's ever worked in a startup knows that there's pain in the middle. And we were in the middle, like that growth, that grind, that you have to have the ownership mentality, the independence that has to be there was all present. And there were some things that were like toxic and painful, but I stepped out like, and a year later, those things are starting to get fixed. Like, they hired someone for HR for the first time. And it's like, if I had just kind of held on and stayed, I think there are a lot of other things in life that I wouldn't have done, but it also wasn't professional. And that's not the way that I like to behave. You know, like what I should have said was, I'm removing Slack from my phone now. I'm on vacation and we can talk about this when I come back. Like, is what
Yeah. It obviously just pressed a few buttons clearly, didn't it? So, and it probably combined with the fact if you're in that middle stage, there's other stuff going on, other stuff needling, and then just that one thing. If you're heading towards vacation, I can see how that would happen.
You know how hard you work in a startup, right? Like, and then that it had nothing. Like, the website I came into was like blue vomit. It looked like standard IT company website, and they're not even an IT company. Like, and I did all the new, like, the sunset branding that they have, and the purple and the pink and the like, all of, like, I did the whole strategy around going after media and gaming, and I introduced them to GDC, and I got them on the conference circuit, and I hired all their sales guys, and I hired their new VP of sales, and like, I'd put in all of this work, and I just felt so underappreciated in that moment that I was just like, F this, I'm out. Which is just, that's reactive. It's not how you should act.
Oh, Megan, that's what makes you brilliant, though. That's the thing. It's those little things that, you know, that those character traits that probably got you through those moments when you needed the grit. That same grit just came out in a slightly different way at that point. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I've got a final question for you before we let you go. If you weren't in the MSP space, like, where would you be? I suppose you kind of answered that one. You'd be down the golf course, right?
Yeah, down the golf course selling beer.
There were quite a few things that I have always thought, like, I really could do that. I've thought about going back to school for psychology because my special interest is behavioral psych, and I think that's what really makes me super successful at sales and marketing. Starting over at this point with something you have to go to college for is not it for me. I've thought about being an author, which I am, but like being like a fantasy author. I've thought about definitely like going back to bartending has come up. Education was always up there. The only reason I'm not an educator is because the pay is terrible, if we're honest. Like, and I feel like I do educate in what I do, but I'm not a teacher. So there have been a lot of things. There's also just like industries I look at. I'm like, oh, maybe I want to go, because that's a much easier transition, right? Like, if I'll go do sales, but I'll do sales in a different industry. That would be fun. I mean, and I'm your stereotypical visionary, and I don't mean visionary in the like I think I'm a visionary. I mean in EOS, like I would be a visionary. That like I have ADHD and I have a million ideas a second. So like we drive past an empty building and I'm like, oh, I could make that a business. So I think I would be doing so many things.
Well, listen, I mean, you get that's definitely the longest list I've had so far on the podcast for sure. Normally it's like, oh, I don't know. I love IT so much that I just don't know.
Well, that's an IT guy for you. They're like, no, why would I go do anything other than that? And I'm like, oh man, I could do 100 other things just today that I want to do.
I'm being unfair. Listen, I think you're brilliant, and I think we're definitely, the MSP space is richer for having you in it for now, for however long you're in it, for however long you remain. Do you want to do a bit of a shout out and let us know like what you're up to and whether you want any more clients or whether you've got the balance just right now? I have to say, if you need sales resource and you need sales help, obviously anyone listening to this needs to be speaking to you. But go on, you do your shout.
Yeah, so I can be found on LinkedIn as Megan Killion, and if I'm not the first result, tell me, because I work hard on being that first result.
What for your name?
You are the first. I checked.
Yeah, and I am the chief consultant at Pisces Growth, and we help MSPs scale their revenue by insourcing. So we help you get better and build your business yourself instead of signing a 3-year contract on an outsourced agreement. We make you better so that you can run your business better, sleep better, make more money. And we are taking 1 new client this quarter. But
Okay.
that's it.
There's your
if
call
you
to
want to be
action,
our 1
people.
new client.
And I have to ask you, I've always really enjoyed your content. You used to put out content regularly. It was always like mega impactful. This is before the AI sort of thing came in and everyone could churn out stuff really fast. You would churn out stuff that, that was kind of just rich enough with advice. And what's going on with that? Are you still doing that? Have you slipped off my algorithm, or is it just not happening anymore?
I do still do content. I am guilty of using AI for it sometimes, which I think is not as good. But I did this thing a couple years ago called Brand 30. Which was just like a framework. And if anybody wants to DM me and ask me for my LinkedIn frameworks, I'm happy to share them with you. But it's just kind of a framework for thinking about what can I talk about that I just know a lot about, and who am I talking to, and breaking that into both personal and professional, and kind of putting it into buckets. And it's how to create content that it doesn't have to be this heavy, time-consuming thing. You can use voice to text. You can use AI. You can use AI to just generate the ideas and do the writing yourself. One of the things I do a lot is like I will just voice to GPT my long rambling thoughts in the car.
Yeah, that works great, doesn't it? I do that too.
Yeah, and be like, now you turn that into something legible.
Yeah, make it coherent, please, if you can. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful time to be alive with that tech supporting us. Listen, Megan, it's been wonderful having you on. I'm so glad we managed to do this finally. Thanks so much for being so open and vulnerable with all the sort of backstory and all that. It's really kind of you to share that with us. Hopefully people listening found that as interesting as we did. And I look forward to doing some more content with you again soon, hopefully, if you've got time in your busy schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
All right, wonderful. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye for now.
Cheers.